On the 29th of November, 1970, a university professor set out with his two young daughters to hike the wooded slopes above the Norwegian city of Bergen. It was meant to be an ordinary autumn walk. Instead, among the rocks and scrub of a remote valley, they stumbled upon something that would haunt Norwegian criminal history for more than 50 years. Half hidden behind stones lay the body of a woman, badly burned, her arms raised in a strange pose. The professor gathered his children and hurried away to call the police. He had just discovered the Isdal Woman. The place itself already carried a dark reputation. Isdalen, the valley where she was found, translates roughly to the Ice Valley, though locals had long whispered a grimmer nickname, the Valley of Death. For centuries it had been associated with suicides and fatal accidents, a lonely place shadowed by steep mountains. People in Bergen tended to avoid it after dark. Now the valley had claimed another victim, and this one arrived wrapped in secrets. From the moment investigators reached the scene, nothing about the woman's death would prove simple or ordinary. The scene was disturbing and deliberate. The woman's body was severely charred on the front, yet the ground and objects around her told a careful story. Investigators found a dozen sleeping pills scattered nearby, an empty bottle that smelled of gasoline, a packed lunch, and personal items that had been strangely arranged. Some belongings appeared deliberately positioned, as if staged. Most unsettling of all, every label had been scraped or cut from her clothing, and the manufacturer's markings had been removed. Someone had gone to great lengths to ensure this woman could never be identified. The autopsy deepened the puzzle. The woman had swallowed a large number of sleeping pills, and there was soot in her lungs, meaning she was still breathing when the fire started. She also had a bruise on the right side of her neck, possibly from a blow or a fall. Her fingerprints had been sanded down, deliberately erased to prevent identification. Dental work suggested she had received treatment across several countries in Europe. This was not a local woman who had wandered into the valley. She was a traveler, and someone had worked hard to strip away her past. Days later, police made a breakthrough at the Bergen railway station. 2 suitcases in the left luggage lockers were traced to the dead woman. Inside was a bizarre collection, clothing with all the labels removed, a set of prescription glasses, cosmetics, and rolls of foreign banknotes from several countries. There were also wigs in disguises. And there was one item that seemed to mock the investigators directly, a small notebook filled with strings of letters and numbers that read like a secret code, arranged in neat columns across the pages. When code breakers finally cracked the notebook, the answer was almost disappointing, and yet it opened a new mystery. The coded entries turned out to be a log of the woman's travels, dates and the names of towns she had passed through, written in a personal shorthand. She had crisscrossed Europe, moving between cities in a restless, secretive pattern. But why disguise your own itinerary in code? Why track your own movements so carefully? The notebook suggested a woman who trusted no one, who lived as though she were being watched, or perhaps followed. As detectives retraced her steps, hotel records revealed something extraordinary. In the months before her death, the woman had stayed in hotels across Norway and beyond, and at nearly every one she used a different name. Investigators eventually documented at least 8 false identities, each with its own nationality and passport. She spoke several languages, changed her hair and appearance between stays, and requested rooms with a view of the entrance. Staff remembered her as elegant, guarded, and quietly nervous, a woman who seemed always to be listening for footsteps behind her. Witnesses added chilling fragments. At one hotel she had reportedly moved rooms after seeming alarmed by another guest. In her final days she was seen speaking with unidentified men. One waiter recalled her whispering that she might not have long to live. She checked out of her last hotel abruptly, paid in cash, and requested a taxi. Then she vanished from the record entirely until her burning body appeared in the Valley of Death. Between that final checkout and her death lay a gap of several days that no one has ever been able to fill. The theories arrived quickly, and the loudest was espionage. This was the height of the Cold War, and Norway was strategically vital, home to NATO installations and secret weapons testing. A multilingual woman with false passports, foreign currency, coded notebooks, and a habit of vanishing looked, to many, exactly like a spy. Some believed she had been surveilling Norwegian missile tests along the coast. Others suggested she was an agent who had been discovered, then silenced by her own side or an enemy service to prevent her from ever being questioned or exposed. Yet the official conclusion was far quieter. Norwegian police ruled the death a probable suicide, suggesting the troubled woman had taken pills and set herself alight in the isolated valley. But critics have pointed out how difficult that scenario is to accept. How does a person swallow sleeping pills, walk into a remote gorge, remove the labels from their own clothing, and burn themselves while leaving belongings arranged neatly nearby? The bruise on her neck, the erased fingerprints, and the staged scene all pointed, for many, toward murder dressed up to look like something else. For decades the case went cold, but modern science reopened it. In recent years investigators exhumed samples and analyzed the chemical isotopes locked in the woman's teeth. The results suggested she was born in Central Europe, possibly around the German-French border region, and had moved westward during childhood, likely in the years surrounding the Second World War. Facial reconstructions were produced and shared internationally, and appeals went out across the continent. Someone, somewhere, must have known this elegant, multilingual traveler. Yet every lead dissolved, and no family ever came forward to claim her. And so the Isdal woman remains nameless. She was buried in a zinc coffin in Bergen, in case she ever needed to be identified, and Norwegian police still keep the file open. Was she a spy caught in the machinery of the Cold War? A woman fleeing something in her past? A victim of murder, or of her own despair in a valley long shadowed by death? Every answer collides with another unanswerable question. More than 50 years later, she lies in a foreign grave, her true name burned away with her, waiting for someone to finally remember who she was.